A panel of advisors to the FDA has voted unanimously to endorse a drug from Eli Lilly that could help slow the early progression of Alzheimer's. This would be the second Alzheimer's drug cleared in the U.S. And joining us now is our 9 News health expert, Dr. Payal Kohli. Anytime we talk about something like this, people are excited because this is so awful. And this is what people have been waiting for. More things to slow the progression, right?
So true. I mean, we've been struggling with finding a treatment for Alzheimer's for decades. Now, in the last 2 years, we've had now 2 promising new treatments. And really the question that it's raised is that, are we treating earlier in the disease, which is one of the things we've been doing with this drug, when the brain tissue is still healthy? And are we dosing it differently than what we were doing before? And is that the explanation for the success of these medications?
And you say 2, and the other is Leqembi?
That's right.
So talk about the differences, if you will, between how these present, a sort of aid for people.
Yep, so the Alzheimer's develops because you get plaque deposition in the brain. It's almost like junk that develops in your brain. So the idea here is to clear those plaques from the brain using your own immune system. So these antibodies go into your brain, stick to the plaque, target your immune system to come and sort of clear out these 2 plaques. They're dosed a little bit differently, Tom. So Leqembi is twice a month, and this new drug is only once a month. But what's the big difference here is that the new drug, you could get off of it. So they treated people for about a year, stopped it, and saw that the plaques didn't come back up to 18 months.
Oh.
Dosage is interesting, but like, how have they proved as far as effect? Have they been very effective so far?
So about the same. They slow the rate of cognitive decline. So this one's about 37%. The other one was about 25%, which translates into about a 7-month delay in the onset of symptoms.
If I remember right, when they talked about Leqembi, it was like it really has to be early on in diagnosis, so you have to really have an early diagnosis. And also, not everybody can take it.
That's right.
Am I right? Okay,
Yep.
all
Yep.
right.
And this is exactly the same thing with this drug. So if you have 2 bad copies of the ApoE gene, which we've now discovered essentially sets you up to have Alzheimer's, you're going to get brain bleeds with this drug.
Oh,
and so there's certain people that don't qualify for this drug. If you're too far along in the disease, you couldn't qualify. And because it's targeting the immune system to go into your brain and launch an attack, you can get brain swelling, you can get brain bleeds, nausea, headaches, a lot of other side effects as well.
Those are significant side effects, but we all know from people that we've met or that we know who deal with Alzheimer's, you pretty much take anything you get. There are very few lifelines out there, it seems like, that are effective right now.
It is true, but at the end of the day, we're still talking about slowing the decline rather than a treatment or changing the course of the disease, especially for drugs that cost several $1,000s every year. So this is certainly a step in the right direction, but my concern is I don't want people to think that we're now curing Alzheimer's. We really do need to start thinking about earlier detection and thinking about maybe even screening with ApoE4 genotypes earlier in life.
So you talk about the plaque that builds up in a brain, but there's also talk about genetics,
Yes.
about a gene that might be a key to this as well. Could you
Yep.
talk about that a little bit?
Yep, so that's this ApoE4 gene. So we all have this APO gene that carries cholesterol and lipids around our body. And if we have 2 copies of ApoE4, that's the version of the gene that we have, it's almost certain that you're going to get Alzheimer's because that's now been established to be causal in Alzheimer's. One of the reasons we hadn't discovered it earlier is because it's also involved in heart disease, and a lot of these individuals were dying from heart disease before they lived long enough to get Alzheimer's.
So if you're almost certain to get it, it then becomes a matter of when?
That's right.
And how does it accelerate? And is that up to you as far as how you live your life, or is that just who you are genetically?
Well, lifestyle factors can change how our genes are expressed. So I talk about our genes being sort of the hardware of our body, and how we live our life is the software. It can change how those genes are expressed, but in individuals who have 2 copies of the ApoE4, they will develop Alzheimer's. And unfortunately, both of the treatments, this one and Leqembi, cannot be used in these individuals because of that very high risk.
Is that a test people should get to find out if you have
Yeah,
ApoE4, if you have
genetic
2 of them, or is that $1 million? Or?
Well, it's not $1 million, it's available, but it's really an ethical question. And the Alzheimer's Association doesn't recommend getting it, but it's really, to me, a very individual decision. If you have a family member who's had it and you want to get it, because the problem is we don't have a solution yet. And
All you would do is no.
That's
right. And we can't modify it quite yet because neither of these drugs are really good drugs for those types of individuals. Now, perhaps it'll motivate you to live your life better and such, but we should be doing that anyway. And so it's a little bit tricky when it
Don't eat 76 hot dogs. That's a start.
That's the first thing I thought of. I guess don't sign up for the competition.
Great stuff today. Thanks.
Yeah, really. We got to get more into genetic testing too. That's super interesting. Okay, you can find out more with Dr. Kohli at 9news.com/Dr. Kohli.